This is Michael Popok, and by the looks of things, it's Legal AF After Dark. Special Counsel Bob Hur didn't cover himself with any glory the way he wrote his report, in which he was supposed to exonerate Joe Biden, and instead he damned him with faint praise and argued that he had some sort of memory loss or memory lapse problem. But that's not what the 300-page transcript of the actual interview of Joe Biden that just got released says. And when Robert Hur was testifying in front of Congress and no longer getting softball questions by MAGA congresspeople like Matt Gaetz, and was getting hard-hitting questions and interrogated by Democratic congresspeople, he sort of sung a different tune. Sort of like he might have lied about an observation about Joe Biden's memory that was in Joe Biden's favor that just didn't make it into the report. Learn more on this week's episode of Legal AF. Take a listen.
Popok, what we see here, and this is why you and I said we have to, we came together, why we have to do Legal AF, because the media just pushes these narratives. They buy these narratives, they buy the spin rooms and all this, and then they push narratives versus just show me the facts. And I think that was on display in this committee hearing earlier this week, the Judiciary Committee hearing, where Robert Hur, the Republican who's the special counsel who was investigating President Biden, who found that President Biden committed no crimes at all, but then put in the report that he thought that President Biden presented as someone who's elderly with a bad memory. And that became the narrative. And there was more about this narrative about Biden's memory, Biden's memory, Biden's memory. And, when you actually see the transcript, the same way when we saw the transcript of Hunter Biden, when it turns out that the whistleblowers are actually not whistleblowers that the MAGA Republicans use, and they actually turn out to be people like Alexander Smirnov, who are quite literally agents of Russia, or they rely on agents, quite literally, exaggeration, agents of the CCP, Libyan arms dealers, to try to overthrow our democracy, and they funnel and launder this disinformation. When MAGA Republicans say, we've got 17 audio recordings of President Biden and being involved in a bribe, and then the New York Post published Joe Bribin, that stuff gets out there. That stuff's defamation. And I know because he's the president of the United States, he can't sue for defamation, or he's focused on our country versus being a Donald Trump who sues people for everything. And so they could take any shot at him that he wants and lie and cheat and steal and do all of that. And President Biden, who's focused on we the people, won't do anything. But all that stuff is just crap. It's just 100% lies. And so when you tell a big lie, sometimes people are like, yeah, but people don't lie like that. There has to be some truth there. No, they lie. There was not one audio recording, yet alone 17 audio recordings that the MAGA Republicans claimed that existed of Biden being involved in bribes, and that 1023 form is actually a Russian spy laundering the information, and the other person was a CCP, and the other things they complained about was from 2018. And now with Robert Hur, because we got Robert Hur's narrative, but we didn't get the transcript. The transcripts need to come out immediately, because the transcripts always show that these MAGA Republicans are lying to we the people. So when the transcript finally came out and Hur was testifying, we read the transcript of Hur's interview with President Biden. President Biden remembered all of the dates, knew all of the stuff. I mean, look, there's some things that if you were to ask me what I had for dinner last Wednesday, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you what I had for dinner on Monday. There are things that people just don't, remember and prioritize. But in this transcript itself, Hur tells Biden that you have a photographic recall of your house, and praises Biden's photographic skills. So how do you say that in a transcript and then put a report where not only do you not mention that, but you say the opposite? So let me just show you right here so you know I'm not spinning this at all. This is Robert Hur being questioned by Democratic Congressmember Eric Swalwell on this issue. Play the clip.
I now want to turn you to the transcript and day 1, page 47. You said to President Biden, you appear to have a photographic understanding and recall of the House. Did you say that to President Biden?
Those words do appear on page 47 of the transcript.
Photographic is what you said. Is that right?
That word does appear on page 47 of the transcript.
Never appeared in your report, though. Is that correct? The word photographic?
That does not appear in my report.
I mean, that is beyond offensive. Popok, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, and I want to have that stand in contrast to him playfully, it's the only way to put it, playfully interacting with Matt Gaetz. When Matt Gaetz said to him, "Is that have you heard President Biden say that he was exonerated by your report? Do you agree with that? That is not consistent with my report and what I wrote in my report." Well, we call that in the business a lie. Would you call it a lie? Oh, then it's a lie. So instead, every time Swalwell so masterfully, surgically went after him to show the hypocrisy of the things he left out, because these are all editorial decisions as you spin the narrative, he, instead of saying, no, I did not include in my report that he has a photographic memory, at least about his house in that aspect, he said, that does not appear on page 465 of my report. Right. He's not helping at all. I mean, listen, if you're going to be a special prosecutor, and we're back to Merrick Garland having appointed this guy, if you're going to be an even-handed special prosecutor, and one day we'll see Jack Smith in a hearing just like this one, hopefully talking about the indictment, the conviction of Donald Trump. But putting that aside for a minute, be honest in your demeanor, be honest in your interactions. Don't be so transparently partisan. I get it. You're a Republican. I get it. You were a Republican nominee by Donald Trump to a U.S. attorney's office in Maryland. I got it. But you don't have to, we're talking about high stakes issues, right? The democracy and justice is teetering on the edge of on a knife's edge. Do better in the way you interact with Congress. You know you're going to be there. You know your report was going to be there, and that we were going to ultimately get our hands on the actual transcript itself. And just one last thing about that. What I've learned about Joe Biden from the Hur report and through the lens of the Hur report is that he has been a methodical journalist and note taker his entire life. From his, not just recently, people make fun of him because he has note cards before he takes the podium. He has been writing copious, like a diarist, notes about every meeting he's ever attended. Now some of that got him in trouble because he took some of those notes with him, just like Reagan took his diaries with him about Iran-Contra. But putting that aside for a minute, all that showed me is if I wanted to get a window into Joe Biden's mind and how it's organized, it's organized. And not everybody's memory is perfect at any age. I know plenty of people, including, I have a pretty good memory, but I know people in their 30s and 40s that don't have the recall that Robert Hur required of the president of the United States, who is, I know Robert Hur thought he was the most important person in the room during the 3-hour interview, but he wasn't. The leader of the free world is. He had a couple things on his mind, including a war that had just started on October 7th or October 8th when they did the interview in Israel that Biden was involved with. So, what I learned about the organizational principles of Joe Biden's mind, I found very comforting. He's been taking notes his whole life. He takes things seriously. He does it not as a crutch, but as a way to organize his thoughts. When you talk to people who are diarists, who are journal makers, it is a tremendous way for logical people to sort through information and to retain information. And I like that in a president, as contrasted with Trump, who got so bored during the daily presidential briefings that they effectively stopped giving it to him because he never paid attention to it. Which would you rather have, America? And the fact that, like you said, he can't recall. I'll leave it on this. Before we recorded tonight, I was reading an article about the author who wrote the novel that the movie American Fiction is based on, that just won an Academy Award. Fascinating guy, by the way. And And the interviewer for the New Yorker magazine said that the guy, who's like 68 and has a tremendous, his books fill an entire shelf of novels. He couldn't remember the date that he wrote the book that they were talking about or the date that it was published. And the guy felt he had to write that down. And the first thing I thought was, yeah, because some of these facts and information are not at our, we're not computers. And we're not there. We're not, Joe Biden's not a trained horse who counts with his hoof for, as a circus trick for Robert Hur. He should be ashamed of himself. The whole report, as Judge Ludig during one of my interviews of him said, it was an abomination. It was a disgrace what he wrote in his report. And now, finally, that we see what's in those actual transcripts, we see a coherent, logical person who at times had photographic recall and memory consistent with exactly the person I thought I voted for when Joe Biden was elected. Well, that's Legal AF. We do it every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Where? This YouTube channel. You knew that. Don't change the dial. This is MeidasTouch YouTube channel. Help them get instead to 3 million free subscribers. All you got to do is use your thumbs and fingers. It'll get you right there. And then if you like, you can pick it up on audio podcast platforms under Legal AF, wherever you get your audio podcasts from, Google, Spotify, Apple, and the like. If you know all about Legal AF, you're already part of our audience. We really thank you. Seriously, from the bottom of our heart for being with us. We just celebrated our third anniversary, our third birthday, and you're all part of that success. Take that clip, though, and send it to people in your life, friends and family, and ask them to join us. And maybe they'll go, hey, I want to invest an hour in a full-length podcast that's like that, where lawyers know what they're talking about at the intersection of law and politics. If, however, you have no idea what I'm talking about or who I am, I'm Michael Popok. That was Legal AF, and we invite you to join us every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So, until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.